Okay, hello, welcome to episode 371. Is that right? No, 370 of the Self-Help
No,
Podcast.
no, it's 371.
371, yeah, okay, yeah, I
It
didn't
is.
update that in my notes. Of the Self-Help Podcast, yeah, me, Ed Lamb, and my good pal Sean Orford. How are you, Sean?
I'm good, and I can count, so it'll be great. Good.
Excellent, that's good to hear. Yeah, we're talking about the cost of staying on top today. We'll come on to why and in a second, but it was an article I read this morning when I woke up, which I thought was quite interesting. So yeah, we'll come on to that a bit. liveinthepresent.co.uk for all the show notes and links, as always. Sean's written a blog post already to accompany this, which you can find on the website too. Yeah, how you been, Sean? How's tricks?
I'm okay. I have to admit that I have finally gone to a Kindle.
Aha.
So, and this one, because you lent me yours to try, and this one does the books, but also does the audio books as well.
Nice. Okay.
And
cool.
I never ever thought I would go for a Kindle. I always thought they were a bit, oh my God. But actually, having used it and played with it, it's so much easier to read on. I was reading on the iPad, and you just can't get Kindle properly on an iPad because it reflects off the screen all the time.
Yeah.
Whereas I can actually go out in the sunlight with that and read. It's a real treat. Real treat.
Lovely, quite lovely little devices, aren't they? Very well.
Yeah.
I don't know if simple is the right word, because I don't know how the heck they work, that mad display they have.
Yeah.
But they look simple, and they're quite easy to operate on.
Yeah. It's good.
Mm-hmm.
Good.
Very cool.
Enjoying.
And how's life in the world of well, I'll say lockdown, but things are easing up quite a lot now in the UK, aren't they?
Well, I think that from what I'm listening to from other people, and also from what I'm observing, I just think we're heading for more problems. I don't know the realities of that, but just watching the way people are interacting and not doing. I mean, the social distancing is gone completely, and the thing I don't get is that Boris came out today and said we're going to start wearing masks in a week's time or whenever it is. Why not today? Why are we waiting for a week? How many people are likely to be infected in the time?
Yeah, it's strange. I mean, fair dues, you could say, we're going to start cracking down on people a week from now, but we suggest that you start wearing a mask from today.
Yeah, that would make sense, wouldn't it?
Yeah. So everyone needs like 2 weeks to kind of get ready, don't they?
Yeah, always. Yeah.
To get a blooming mask. Have you got a mask? Are you all set on that front?
Oh, I got loads. When it was all happening, I knew what was likely to happen at least. So I got a whole load in. But I'm covering people like Auntie V in the 90s, Nanny Pam. So I'm making sure everybody's got masks.
Good. I need to get a proper cloth. I've got a snood thing that I use it in the winter when I'm cycling to keep the wind off my nose. But
yeah, and that would do. That would do it.
Yeah.
As long as you wash it,
Yeah.
I've got all kinds of things. I've got ones with filters in and all kinds of stuff.
Strange times, eh? Strange times.
Yeah. But I mean, I've been out to shops this weekend. I had to go and get some stuff. And I go into a shop and there's only myself and maybe another person in the shop wearing a mask. None of the staff have got them on. None of the other customers have got them on. And it will be what it will be.
I saw some stats on countries around the world, and I think in the Nordic countries like Denmark and Finland, they've got the lowest percentage of mask use. It's about 4 or 5%.
All right.
The UK is I think it's currently about 25-30%, but climbing quite steadily now.
It's been nothing like 25% wherever I've been. So.
Same, yeah. No, on the few occasions I've been out and about, I haven't seen any really. Anyway, and the States are quite high actually. I think America's 70%, but it's the far eastern countries like Vietnam and China and Japan where it's like 95%. I don't know if it's just some kind of like. I know in Japan they're kind of used to wearing masks all the time anyway, but
you see Japanese and Chinese tourists over here, and they over the last few years, and they will very often be wearing masks. So they're used to it.
Yeah. Oh, how we laughed at the time, but yeah, they're laughing now. Not that you know it, but they are like.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's crack on with the episode because I read this article. It's not an article; it's quite a long essay actually.
Yeah, it is very interesting.
On theguardian.com, you sent me a text first thing asking what should we talk about later, and I was just part way through this thing.
And you thought that's the one.
That's the one. Yeah, well, I'm sure we'll be able to find something. So it's about Nespresso, the coffee makers, the machines, and the capsules, and how they've kind of. It's a really fascinating history of how they came to be and how they expanded and how they kind of cornered this market for apparently great coffee that you can make in your home. The original dream was to have be able to have an espresso that is as good as like the best espresso machine you could find out there on the high street.
In Italy.
In Italy, yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I think it's quite interesting because it was talking about the guy that invented it he was fascinated by is it the Parthenon or the Pantheon? Sorry, in Rome.
Yeah,
Pantheon. There was one particular coffee shop where there would be people queuing around the block, whereas there was lots of other coffee shops available where you could get an espresso, but everyone wanted one from this shop, and it was something to do with the amount of times they pumped
it's to do with it. If you pass air through it, you get a creme on the top. So it looks like a pint of Guinness, and it's that frothy bit which makes the difference. But it's pumping the air through it, which is what they were doing, and they were doing that, and that's what Nespresso have caught in doing it.
Yeah. So anyway, from that you went off and you invented this Nespresso machine, which has obviously evolved into this mega business. Which, as you read the article on, you realise they're struggling to grow. They're struggling to keep that dominant position in the world, and it just got me thinking about what is the cost of staying on top, and how is it possible to stay on top in industry and in other forms of aspects of life, and is it healthy? So yeah, what were you thinking when you read it, Sean, or when you were skimming through it?
Well, it made me think about lots of things. I mean, in the blog, I talk about how in lockdown, the first thing I became aware of was the amount of plastics I'm using. It became more and more apparent to me. So I've stopped using all plastics in the bathroom. I've got bars of shampoo, bars of conditioner, bars of body wash. Yeah, I've even now got a bar of toothpaste. Just trying to stop using plastic. It's just ridiculous the amount of plastic that we have. And then I'm looking at things like tea bags. Well, tea bags are lined with plastic. They're creating coffee bags. They're lined with plastic. And then the thing that came out in the article about Nespresso, and I've got 3 Nespresso machines, right? One which I've used to travel with, because I spent loads of time in Italy, and I just love the Italian coffee, and you can never get coffee like that here. And Nespresso was the nearest I could get to it. So I invested in the Nespresso machines. I had one in the office, one in the kitchen, and one that I travel with when I'm traveling around. Mm-hmm. And then reading all those articles, because it was a series of articles in the thing you sent over, and realizing not only it would appear that the majority of the capsules are not recycled, which is what I thought was going on, which was one of my justifications for having it, but also they've got plastic in as well. Which is like, oh God.
I know, it's everywhere.
Yeah. So it's really made me question a lot of things that I'm doing, and I've got a thing going on in my head where I'm going to see whether I can, just on a personal level, not inflict it on anybody else, on the family or anything, just on a personal level, I can eliminate my use of plastics, like single-use plastics, like a toothpaste tube. Why are we doing it? Because we don't need to do it, and I just do it automatically because I don't think about it. But if I think about it, then it's not right. It's not tolerable.
Yeah, well, I didn't send it to you to kind of kickstart yet more environmental discussion. But
it did.
Yeah, apparently only I think 5 or 10% of all Nespresso pods, which are recyclable because it's 100% aluminium. Apparently only about 10% of them actually get recycled, which is a shame. Hey ho. I've actually I do have an espresso machine that I got for Christmas a few years ago. It's at my office, which I haven't been to for 4 months or whatever. And I hadn't been using that much anyway. I just kind of got out of the habit of buying pods and stuff. Yeah, but anyway, there's a YouTube channel. I'm going to link it to it in my resource actually later on. I think it's a chap called James Hoffman. And he's a YouTuber, but he's like proper really nerdy about coffee. Like he really knows his stuff, and he reviews different home espresso machines and different coffee. And he like really,
Right.
you can tell he knows his stuff. He's talking about, you know, he'll have like an 18-gram shot of espresso and all that with whatever 80 grams of water, and he's like, it's 98 degrees C this water now, so it's perfect brewing and all that stuff. You can tell he's just proper coffee nerd, and that's cool.
Yeah.
I don't think he's the biggest Nespresso fan, but I need to find out why actually.
Yeah, that would be interesting. One of the conclusions I came to reading your article and thinking about it is that the only way to make it make sense is to use the reusable capsules. You can actually get stainless steel capsules that fit in the Nespresso machines that you fill with your own coffee.
Oh wow!
That have the same effect. You get that same kind of creamer effect with it. And I think that's where I'm going to go with it. I do like a cup of coffee. I tend to be on the decaffeinated side these days, which is okay. But you get good decaffeinated coffees. And if they're done right, then you get a really good espresso.
Oh, I wasn't going to let you get away with that. Yeah, totally. I'm investigating that, and I'm trying to find the perfect home espresso machine. But we're not talking about coffee per se this episode. I was thinking about what is it about commerce and business that just always demands more and more and more and more and more until inevitably things go pop and things start to contract.
Well, I hate to say this, but it's actually capitalism. If you look at the way that capitalism is constructed, it works on the basis that you have to have growth every year. And if you have to have growth every year, you've got to have sales. If you've got to have sales, you've got to have something to sell. So if you look at somewhere like Apple, you've got continual planned obsolescence in the products because there's a new product coming out, because we've got to keep selling, we've got to keep on top of the market. I mean, is there really a lot of difference between the original iPad and the one that we've got now? Or was it beyond the wit of mankind to make it so you could upgrade the programs on it and still have the same hardware? You know, we've got this thing about you have to dump the hardware because there's the new phone coming out, whether it's Samsung, whether it's Huawei, or whether it is iPad, you know, Apple. It's the same story all along.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's why I've come to quite enjoy or appreciate the Kindle, because that one I lent to you is one of the first generation ones. It's like 2008, something like that. So no, but not quite that. Anyway, it's 10 years old.
But it's still going, still fine. Yeah.
It works fine, man, and it does the job, and you can read a book in it, and imagine it will work just as well 50, 60 years from now, and it'll still do the job of reading a book almost as well as an actual book itself, I guess. But there are a few benefits to having a Kindle, I guess. But yeah, I quite like that simplicity. But then, you know, I'm a gadget freak as well, so I've got the watch, and I've got a 4-year-old iPhone, which I'm quite proud of. But I did just get a new laptop. After my old one was really struggling. But yeah, is it just, we just not help ourselves with this stuff?
But if you think about it with everything, you know, like with cars, when I lived on the Isle of Wight, because cars did maybe 2,000, 3,000 miles a year, you'd see cars that were 20, 25, maybe even 30 years old still driving around. But how often is it? Like every 3 years, every 5 years, most people get a new car? You know?
Yeah. Well, don't talk to me about cars.
Yeah. But everything I look at is like that. And why are we on? What are we chasing?
Yeah,
you know,
well, that's the question. What are we chasing?
I think that when we're always looking forward to what we can do next, You know, whether it's because it comes in fashions. It was the new bathroom, it was the new kitchen, it was the conservatory, it was the double glazing, whatever it was that people have to have. Then what we're effectively saying to me is we're saying that we're discontent with now and we want to create better than now in the future. And it's like, when can we be happy in the now when we continue looking forward to something that's going to happen next? You know, it's like, if you are going to go on holiday this year or next year, do you spend the rest of this time looking forward and actually missing where you are because you're looking forward to this other thing? You know, and it's, how many times have we looked at something? I don't know, maybe someone's using an old iPhone, and we think, "Are you still using that old thing?" You know, because look at man's really good. You know,
Indeed. I was thinking about how it's not just industry where kind of innovation is needed, constant innovation, but if you think about musicians and how quickly they can rise and fall, you know, it's quite rare for a musician or a band to go on for 50, 60 years throughout their entire career. It's not impossible, you know. I think
the Rolling Stones.
Yeah, the Rolling Stones. I mean, yeah, they're kind of just churning out hits now. Really, they haven't. I would argue whether they've written anything meaningful. A long time. It's. I quite like the Beatles did it. They were cool. They kept moving. They kept changing, and then they just said, "That's it. It's over." And that must have taken a lot of guts, because it's quite rare for a band to do that, isn't it?
Yeah, there's something else about musicians. Is if you look at guitars, there's things like the Fender Stratocaster, which is the favorite guitar, and those haven't changed since the 1950s. You know, they're still the same guitar. I mean, the electronics might have varied a bit, but essentially, you know, people will want to get a Fender Strat. I was actually talking to a young woman the other day who's a musician, and she's in her early 20s, and her ambition is to get a Fender Strat. You know.
So you could give me some sort of nod to let me know that I'm part of that agreement. Thank you.
Someone in the room with us? What's all that about?
That's fantastic. Thank you. Hi.
That's really weird. That's my. I've got a speaker in the corner here that picked up something on Bluetooth from somewhere, and it's technology. Weird.
I mean, all right, you saw it here first, guys. Weird.
Yeah,
I was more of a Telecaster guy when I was in a band when I was in my late teens. I wanted a Fender Telecaster, but the Strat is pretty cool. I'll give you that.
No, I think you went for a Strat if you were a lead player, and the Telecaster if you played more kind of rhythmic stuff.
Yeah, I think so. Wow. Yeah, it's cool, but it's like sticking with the music stuff. Yeah, I was a big Oasis fan when I was 17, 18, and you know, Oasis burst onto the scene, you know, and they had so much energy. That first album of theirs was incredible. Second album was also amazing. But then the third album, they started to lose their way, and then they just couldn't get it back. And I just wonder if, talking about music and kind of that kind of energy and inspiration, of whether they just lost their inspiration and their kind of passion for life and the stories that came out in the music. It's weird, isn't it?
So when you're thinking about music and you're talking about that, you're talking about the literary content? Are you talking about the musical form? How are you describing that in terms of the newness and they lost? What did they lose?
It's hard to describe what they lost. You know, I mean, I've seen documentaries about Oasis, and the songs that they were playing in when they were like before they were famous, just in some club or in a practice room. All the songs sustained their first three albums. So they had 3 albums worth of incredible tunes, you know, off the bat. And I don't know, maybe when they were young and before they were famous and had loads of money, they had this drive to write incredible tunes. And then when they got the money, I'm making it, this might not be true at all, but I'm just assuming when they got the money and the champagne and the big houses and the fast cars, they didn't have that inspiration anymore to write amazing music. I'm fascinated by why people lose their edge, you know.
But it's interesting when you have creative artists that very often they need to suffer for their art. You know, they've been through great pain, which has led them to.
I mean, with the two brothers, Liam and Noel, they don't get on now anyway, but I think they had quite an abusive father, which you might know a thing or two about. And whether maybe that was the drive for their, for their creativity early on. And, as they got older and became men on their own, maybe they didn't have anything interesting to write about. If Noel or Liam are listening to this, I apologize, because they did do some good music later on, and they're still doing some good tunes. But it just didn't have that spark, from when they were writing.
They lost the edge.
Yeah.
If you think about it, most music, popular music, is about, I'm so cheesed off and I'm going to tell you all about it. Ga-gung, ga-gung. Most songs, they're not about kind of whoopee happy. That's kind of happy clappy. People don't like that. Most songs are quite miserable, really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, in terms of business again, I mean, a business will kind of grow and grow and grow if it's given the chance. And then at some point it will either fail or it will become so big that it's kind of forced to fail, because it's become such a monopoly that government will step in and say, "Oi, you need to tone it down a little bit."
But again, you're back to, this is a capitalist system. That's what happens. Capitalism is bound to fail because it keeps going on this growth model. In the end, we either run out of resources or customers. There's something that we run out of because it has to keep growing and growing and growing to survive. Whereas a communist system, if it was working properly, I don't mean what we experience on the planet at the moment, but a system of equality that didn't have this drive all the time would be more stable. And then people would say to me, yeah, but then you don't get innovation and you don't get all this newness and all that kind of stuff. Well, you can still have innovative stuff going on in a more stable system. But for capitalism, we talk about there's no growth rate. We need a growth rate. And what that means is we have to use more, spend more, create more to have a growth rate. Yeah. So inevitably it fails. It has to.
Fascinating, isn't it, Lipinek? I'm just trying to dig out here. James Hoffman on YouTube. I'm going to see if he's ever reviewed a Nespresso machine. I'm not sure if he has actually. It'd be fascinating to know what his beef was with Nespresso and yeah.
But I mean, you've stopped drinking Nespresso because you're not using the machine. And was that because you couldn't be bothered with all the faff of getting the capsules, or was it that you didn't like the coffee, or why?
A little bit, yeah. It was just the faff of getting the capsules, and I drink decaf now, just instant. But I do want to become a bit more of a coffee nerd. I was watching some videos on YouTube, and this guy seemed to keep cropping up. So I'm biding my time, and I'm going to get a nice little Nespresso machine for home. Yeah, we'll see where I go. But
this is a decaf Nespresso, right? But because I like drinking cold coffee, what I do is, and this is plastic, not good, is I like to put fizzy water in it.
Wow.
So to have a coffee that's topped up with cold fizzy water and a couple of blocks of ice, to me, is lovely.
Oh well, okay. I'll have to try that out.
Yeah, it's nice. It's nice coffee. Yeah.
That could be the next big business. You could make billions and billions off that. You branded it right, and you got
fizzy water, ice, and decaffeinated coffee. There you go.
You got George Clooney is the face of it, the campaign.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I mean, I could be that.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm thinking a lot. There's kind of a few examples of businesses that thought they were infallible and kind of had it all mapped out. Blockbuster, remember those guys?
Yeah.
And Kodak, massive. Because I look at like Audi. Audi put out a statement, the car company, a few days ago. Their CEO, and he was kind of waxing lyrical about the internal combustion engine and how many more years we've got of developing internal combustion engines. And you're just thinking, what planet are you on, man? You're heading for failure.
So sure. How many more years? How many more years are they saying?
He thinks they'll be pumping billions more into development for another 5 to 10 years on petrol and diesel engines. So yeah, there were a lot of questions raised about that. They are developing. I think 50% of their lineup will be electric by 2025 or something like that. But yeah, we'll see how it goes for them. Hey, but yeah, if you've got any shares in it, sell them.
Can you create a clean fossil fuel engine? Is it possible?
There probably is a way, actually, and I'm sure there's some people desperately working on that, so they don't have to retrofit everything. But yeah, it's not something I'm too up on, to be honest. I've gone so the, even if they could, I wouldn't be interested, because yeah, I'm not even like an electric car fan anymore. I just want rid of them all. So.
But I sent you a thing the other day, an article on batteries and how batteries can be made cheaper and more efficient. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, inevitably, people will need to be transported around.
Mm-hmm.
So, are you thinking that's going to be mainly public transport and bicycles? What's the vision in your mind?
Yeah. ABC is what the phrase we use. Anything but car. So yeah, we've got. I mean, we haven't got unlimited resources. That's the problem with the climate change issue, the conundrum. It's a mathematical problem we face. There's a carbon budget that we all have personally and as communities, and we can use that budget to develop a load of electric cars that don't get used very much, or we could put it all into buses, and yeah, e-bikes are awesome, and trains and that kind of technology. So we all have.
There's a guy that we see regularly. We were walking on the beach the other day, and he comes flying down the road on one of those single-wheeled things.
Oh, wow.
A mono wheel thing, and it's amazing how how he goes faster by leaning forward and slows down by the. I've watched him, and he's bending over to do the different directions. It's really clever.
Yeah,
what he's doing.
Actually, having to go on one of those, they look cool. But
it moves at a hell of a speed. It doesn't have any protective stuff on, because I'm thinking if you come off of that, you're really going to bounce.
Yeah, I think are they limited to 15 miles an hour? Well, that's still quite fast if you're.
Yeah. It seemed quite fast when he came past us. It seemed like he was going somewhere.
But yeah, anyway, how do we? I mean, as a final kind of point to summarize. So this is for the people in the world of business and in everyday life. How do we train ourselves to accept what we've got and to be happy with what we have?
Well, I don't think that's a business decision. I think that's an education decision, and that's governmental. And it's also, I think, starts with education systems. But if we're continually told and taught by advertising or by our parents that you need the new whatever, then we will never be happy with what we've got. And happiness is about being in the moment and being where you are. And I couldn't tell you the exact correlation, but we know that both depression and anxiety are on the increase and have been. The more we industrialize and urbanize, the higher it gets. It goes up and up. And I think it goes up and up because we're not content with what we've got, because we're always looking to what we're going to get next.
Yeah, I mean, we've had this fascinating period, and we might get another one, with lockdown, where people have been forced to stay at home and kind of be with themselves and their families, or their partner, whoever it might be. And generally, from what people I've spoken to, people have been pretty happy, but there is a real energy and appetite to get back to normal, whatever normal is. And it's a bit of I see it as a bit of a shame, to be honest, because we've had this opportunity to discover ourselves and be with ourselves and be content, and people are just desperate to get back out, aren't they?
Yeah, but there was that survey when 91% of people surveyed said that they didn't want life to return to normal.
Yeah. True.
So that's what it was, and hopefully that will be, where it stays.
Yeah, I hope so. Yeah, interesting times though. Have you got a resource of the week, Sean?
Well, my resource is anybody that's listening to this who's kind of interested in the planet, go and investigate the idea of non-plastic cosmetics. Start there. And I mean, even on Amazon, if you go there are just so many products now that you can use, but they all would have been plastic bottles and containers. They're not there. You can get all the stuff in cardboard. You can recycle the cardboard. You can use the tablets or whatever. And I think that on a very basic level, those are the kind of things that we need to be looking at.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm going to affect my carbon imprint, then yes, I do need a footprint. I'll get it right now. Footprint. Yeah, that's just on coffee. So that if I'm going to affect it, I'm probably going to affect it in quite small ways, because the amount of little bits of plastic that I use that are going to be around 450 years is phenomenal.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm doing it all the time. Everything that I touch has got plastic on it. It's like, ugh!
Well,
yeah. And if I can stop doing that, then you can stop doing that. We can stop doing that.
I guess a little fact for you. Guess what the biggest source of microplastics that enters our water supply? Any ideas what it might be?
Toothpaste.
No.
No, go on, tell me.
In terms of weight, it equals the amount of plastic that goes in from like crisp packets and bottles. It's car tires.
You're joking?
No, it's like phenomenal amount of weight combined of like plastic and rubber dust that ends up in our water system from car tires.
So it goes down the drains and then goes out into the rivers and yeah,
and then who knows where. Yeah, I mean, there's plastic in us, isn't there? They've done tests where they've found microplastics in most people's blood supply. So yeah, it's really got us boxed in this environmental issue we're facing at the moment.
Wow.
Yes. I'll send you an article. Flip an egg.
Yeah. But it is like, it's wow, isn't it? It's like,
I mean, bicycles have tires as well. So yeah, it's and so do shoes. I guess shoes wear down too. So you've got to. We're kind of boxed in all angles really, but we'll get there, I'm sure.
Wow. Okay, that's nice.
Just speeches there.
Nice,
I love it.
Positive, yeah.
My resource is that nerdy YouTube channel about coffee obsession. So it's James Hoffman's YouTube channel. I'll put it in the show notes on the website. Right. Yeah, you'll love it. Have a good look through it and see what you think.
Yeah, I will do.
Right, and we're back. We're going to do another one, aren't we? Because I'm away in the caravan next week, so we'll record another one in a couple of days.
One on Thursday. Yeah. Sounds good.
All right, Sean. Good to chat to you.
You take care.
See you soon. Bye, everybody.
See ya. Bye.
Yeah.